All right, now we're ready to align our moment of professional growth with standards, or basically to describe why is this thing important, not only to us, but to the field that we're trying to enter. So again, the purpose of our educational portfolio is to capture moments of professional growth from your program. The purpose of this course is to help you author a moment of professional growth into your portfolio. The purpose of this task in this course is to help you align the reasons why you identified your moment of professional growth as an educator with the standards associated with your field, okay? This is part where we're trying to break this down to make it easy so you can see the language that you're using in your reasons, so those paragraphs, which is pretty important, and see what connections there are between those reasons and the standards that your field is set about why it's important to be certain ways, to learn certain things, to be an educational leader or a teacher, okay? So again, just to review, so far you've selected a moment of professional growth that is meaningful to you and your development as a teacher, but now is the time to identify why the moment is, again, important to the field. You will do this by aligning the reasons that you articulate in your reflection with the standards for your field. In the previous task, I used the example of my first unit where basically, and this is in the course, you can read it on the text, but in the first unit I created, I had basically, I was thinking of students first in my instruction. That was a new thing for me that I did in that unit for the first time. And then also I had recognized the value of collaboration. That was important as well, from important reason for why I selected the artifact as well. It's like, hey, these folks know the content or know these students better than I can. If I don't lean on them, this is going to be a worse product, all right? A worse lesson, a worse unit, a worse experience for the students that we're trying to teach. So I need to lean on them. I need to be someone who can collaborate in order to create a better experience. So we are smarter together, is something I learned there. So in the example, identify and explain 2 reasons for why the moment was important to me in my growth as an educator. And those 2 reasons may align with multiple standards from multiple sets of standards. We'll go through that in a second. Looking through each set of standards, I'm going to consider if the growth I described in my reflection aligns with the standards that are listed in the portfolio. If I select a standard that aligns to my growth, I need to explain why with a simple sentence that connects the reflection with the standard. In the end, this one moment of professional growth may align with multiple standards from multiple sets of standards. I can't say that enough, is that, you might be surprised by how many standards something aligns with based off of what we're looking at here. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to share my screen again. Remember, I am logged in into Google Drive with only my @Go. So I'm not confusing my computer and not, it's not wondering like, hey, which of these Google accounts you're using. No. Log out of all of them. Only log in with your @Go. I'm in Google Drive. I'm into my portfolio. Okay. I've located the artifact page. This is the artifact page we've been using throughout this example, throughout this time here. And again, I'm not doing it all. So, I've already pasted in my reflection. So I've got those 2 paragraphs in there. And if you want to know what the paragraphs are, they're in the task. Okay. So I want to have 2 tabs open. Okay. So I'm going to open up one tab, and this is my artifact, my fake artifact. Here's my other tab with my portfolio. I'm actually going to go to my standards. So I'm going to go to the first set of standards for teachers. We want you to go to the in-task standards. For ed leaders, we want you to go to the NELP standards. These are kind of our umbrella standards. They're one for the teachers, those in the Department of Teacher Education. This is a set of standards that everyone's using, is the in-task standards. And then for educational leaders, your NELP standards is going to capture more of the areas of growth that you're going to experience than the CAPE standards. So we have our starting set of standards. So in my mind, I'm going to go back and review. Okay. So if I remember back, and I'm remembering back to my reflection in my first paragraph, I talked about being students first, about making sure to think about students first with regards to designing instruction. And then in the second paragraph, what was my reason? Oh yeah, collaboration with others is important. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm going to consider my first reason. So I'm going to first start with that student first, designing, thinking about the students first, designing instruction, things about student first. Okay. So I'm going to read through my standards and think about that one reason for selecting that artifact first. So the teacher understands how to learn. So I'm going through my standards here. The teacher understands how learners grow and develop, recognize that patterns of learning and development may vary visually within across the cognitive linguistic. I mean, yeah, kinda, but I'm more talking about designing instruction. So it's taken into account, but it's not really that. Learn uses individual learning in diverse cultures and communities to ensure inclusive learning that engage each learner to meet high standards. Possibly. I'm going to keep going. Teacher works with others to create environments that support individual and collaborative learning and that encourage positive social interactive engagement learning. That kind of sounds good too. Teacher understands this. So we kind of, I'm thinking of 2 and 3. Understand the central concept, tools, and instruction of this, and he or she teaches and creates learning that make the discipline accessible and meaningful learners to assure mastery. So I wasn't the main content person, so I'm not really thinking of that. Neither of this one. I was more the math guy, and this was a science lesson. So I didn't really think about that. Assessment. The teacher understands uses multiple methods of assessment. Maybe that's for my bad test, but not for this one. The teacher plans instruction that supports every student meeting. Oh, yes. That supports every student meeting rigorous learning goals by drawing upon knowledge of content, curriculum, crossroads, and pedagogy, as well as knowledge of learning. Yes. Planning for instruction. Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to copy that. Okay. And going back to my other tab, I'm going to put it under the justification heading. So this stuff will eventually delete, but I'm not going to delete it yet. I'm going to put that in there. Now, the thing is, I'm going to make this look pretty, and I'm going to put a subheading, and I'm going to type in task standards. And every set of standards, I'm going to put a little red subheading above. Okay. All right. And I think that's the main one that I would, it could possibly touch on those other ones, but I'm just going to do one main one for this. So I'm going to use this little sentence starter underneath. Okay. This artifact is evidence of growth in this standards because, and I'm going to finish this as a 1-sentence deal. So because and I'm going to actually look back at the standard to get some language. Why did I pick this standard? Because I planned instruction that supports, I used the knowledge, I drew upon knowledge of learners to plan instruction that supports every student in meeting rigorous learning goals. How about that? I'm going to use some of that language. I'm going to borrow some of that language because I want to, because I drew on knowledge of the learners to, and I could be knowledge of learners to create instruction that engaged learners and their needs, abilities, and interests. Abilities. I'm having a tough time spelling. There we go. Abilities and interests to create instruction that engaged, that supported every student in their learning of the content. Right? 1 sentence, nice and sweet, borrowing some of the language that I used in my reflection, but then borrowing some of the language from the from the standard to try to make that connection. Okay, so that's that. Also, so then I've got my other paragraph, right? I've got my other paragraph where I talked about power of collaboration. So I didn't really see anything with collaborating with peers up above, but professional, leadership seeks appropriate leadership roles or opportunities to take responsibility for student learning, to collaborate with learners, families, colleagues. Colleagues. We're doing that. Okay, colleagues. So I collaborate with colleagues. All right. I'm going to use the sentence starter again. Because in order to create this unit I needed to collaborate with colleagues to create the best instruction. Well, let's see. Let's look at the language. To ensure learner growth. So that's straight from the standards. That's why I'm using the quotations. Can you italicize too? So I'm making the connection, right? This is from my reflection, but then I'm making it connected to the language of the standard, right? And the thing, what's great about this is then I can also go in and look at the other standards. So for math, I would look at my other set of standards, the math standards, and see, is there something there with regards to, now, this really wasn't a math unit, so there might not be a lot here, but let's actually just, you know what, for example, yeah, because this really wasn't a math unit. So this might not be an opportunity for me to demonstrate some of these math specific standards. But if I was in elementary, I could also look at the elementary standards. And what you're going to notice is that there's some parallelism between each set of standards. And so, like, thinking about it, collaboration, right? That was one. And then thinking about the think about students first in designing instruction. Okay. And that could be it. Learning needs. Maybe planning, kind of like candidates plan instruction. Candidates use formative and summative assessments. They differentiate instructional materials and activities to address learners' diversity, foster engagement by learning by establishing and maintaining social norms. They build interpersonal relationship with students that generate motivation and promote students' social and emotional development. I plan instruction for learning and plan learning to promote a full range of competencies for each student. Yeah, I would say that. So what I would do is then go, these are the CAPE standards. So I could say, use my little thing, use subheading, CAPE elementary standards. And I could copy that one over. I like that planning one. Copy. Boom, do another justification statement. And then also I would look down here for maybe this could have been it too. So again, I should do a better job of reading each of them, but also the collaboration possibly here. Candidates promote learning and development of every child through participation in collaborative learning environments. So, professional learning, me working together with other peers. I could possibly do this one as developing as a professional, but I think I'll have other opportunities. So for this example, and thinking I'm going to get, if I was elementary, I could get those 3 standards, and possibly elementary also has the special ed standards as well. And so I just want to point out, hey, collaboration, collaborate with other educators, boom. And then instructional planning, possibly that could have been it too. All right. So you could see, like, there's a possibility if I was elementary to get 5 standards with this one artifact. And then I'm going to write those 1-sentence statements that basically connects the standard with my reflection. And so if you've done that with yours, and this could take if this is your first time doing it, you're going to have to get familiar with the standards. So you might have to have a split screen where on one side you've got your artifact and your reflection, basically your reflections, each of those paragraphs. And then you've got the standards, and you're reading, going back and forth, and say, does this artifact line up with this, or this reason for selecting my professional moment of professional growth line up with the standard, and back and forth. And this is going to take some time the first time you do it, because you might be unfamiliar with the standards. Okay. But then as you keep going, you'll get more and more familiar. You're like, oh, that's that. And some people might say, hey, should there be a certain amount that we should have? No, I just wouldn't force anything. Okay. As you get going, eventually you're going to figure out that, there's some standards that I'm not quite hitting yet. And that's going to be opportunities for you to look at your experience and be like, hey, I need these types of experiences. And then it's on your radar to go and look for them, find them, right? Maybe you don't have an opportunity to collaborate with others. All right, so go collaborate. go have a moment of professional growth. Okay. All right. So if you've done this, you've aligned the reasons why you identified your moment of professional growth as an educator with the standards associated with your field. Good job.